December of 2017, it explodes. It's a tremendously important story. It changes the UFO landscape forever, but it gets some things not quite right. You've been on the sidelines watching all the reactions to this for the last 3 years. They report a program called AATIP, headed for a long time by Lou Elizondo, who got $22 million to study UFOs. And the reality is the $22 million was what went to you and AATIP to study much broader subjects than UFOs. And you did interact with Lou Elizondo back and forth, and the AATIP folks. But you were the big program. That was what was left over, right? Is that right?
Yeah, we were the primary program, and our program manager is of a completely different name, who ran our program. The great guy. This is the one I said earlier. It's wonderful that people like him work for our government, because he's a terrific guy. And I met Lou a couple times. He didn't play a role in our program in any way in terms of who we ever reported to or whoever we discussed kind of things with, and our program manager was very fundamental and key. The contest and the entire program was created through our program manager and through Senator Reid and Inouye and Stevens to put this out for a competition, and that's all I know is. And then we won the competition, and we were deserving of that because we were so prepared to participate and do this, and we were best suited to win. We had everything in line to do that.
Since that story came out, as I said, I mean, the UFO world is turned upside down. You have a much broader audience that seems to be focused on it. These senators and congressmen who would never talk about this in a million years are now willing to come out and say this is worth studying. It is a sea change, but it's largely because of the work you guys did.
Well, one of the with the Tic Tac off the coast of San Diego, the event in 2004, we just serendipitously happened to hire on our team in 2008 one of the pilots of the group that saw the Tic Tac underwater, the churning of all the water and underwater, and then as it came out of the water, and so we got a firsthand briefing on something that we probably shouldn't have had, because it should have been totally classified, but it wasn't. It wasn't even acknowledged, In fact,
it was ignored, right?
It was ignored. It was completely ignored, and the FLIR videos were put in drawers in places that subsequently a friend of yours and mine, who up until just very recently ran the whole program for the United States, right, of things off the East Coast and West Coast and so forth, and he just ran it, and so he is the best qualified person to run this program the United States has, and he now no longer runs it, and they've got somebody that's a couple of ranks lower than him to run the program. And my personal opinion is there's an effort that's going to try to eliminate this or put this back in a back drawer compartment now, because they've changed the rank as to who's in charge.
Changed the rank, took the guy who's most knowledgeable out of it, giving them an impossible task to write the master report in 6 months with no budget.
Right.
And the guy who's in charge of it, by the way, is doing it on his own time, I think.
Yeah, that's right. We had a lot of ducks in a row, and we had bought facilities, spent many millions of dollars in buying buildings, and I did have a large program to do a major construction on this property, besides what we already have here. And that was going to be really fun and cool. In fact, what I was going to use, so we would have nothing that would protrude the surface much, I was going to use life support systems that you use in space, because you don't have a door you can go out of or a window you can put up, right? So you survive based on the ecosystem, the environmental control life support systems that you create on board your stations, right? And so I was going to actually implement those into the underground facility, which was going to be substantial. And so that was a lot of fun to do that.
I know that you did knock on many doors during the OSAP, during the BASS program, and that doors got slammed as you're asking for sensitive stuff, for access to sensitive stuff.
Yeah.
Is the secrecy directly related to what you were just talking about, the military imperative? We're going to hold on to this stuff and figure out how to make weapons out of it, and we got to get there before the Russians and Chinese do, because they are working on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely crashes been reported in Russia, and I've heard of them in China, South America, Brazil. They're scattered all around, almost as though they've been deliberately done. Let's just scatter the seeds around and see what happens. So you would hope that people that have custody have a sense of responsibility to and accuracy in estimating what's going to happen with something that you put in the hands of people that are not equipped. It's pretty premature for them to be able to handle something that you've just put into their hands, and they would weaponize it. So I just would hope that that doesn't happen. How what are the scenarios in which that could happen maybe, but you're just hoping that those scenarios never occur. Which would be, obviously, if another country develops very unique capabilities, and it appears as though those capabilities are beyond what logically could have been generated from where we are science-wise now, that might change the philosophy of people here that have access to something. And so what that might do is, instead of having just a very few scientists work on super unique kinds of things, you would have a Manhattan Project.
That's what it needs, right?
If you have a Manhattan Project in today's communication world, how do you keep the cat in the bag? Yeah. How do you keep control and maintain control without having all of a sudden you've generated a mad mutual assured destruction kind of philosophy, which worked in the 50s and 60s and 70s for nukes, but this is something different.
Did you learn anything through BASS, through OSAP program, about consciousness? I mean, you cast a wide net. You were looking at big picture stuff, how different phenomena might interact. Not only just technology, but big picture, ethereal stuff. Did you learn anything about consciousness during that has affected the direction that you're about to take, the leap that you're about to take?
Yeah, there were the things that were being set up as games were thought connected. There was a spontaneity when you felt. You didn't see. Well, you didn't sense anything with the five normal senses. You felt something is in the room with you. So you start taking pictures. You ask, not aloud. You're thinking and asking for things to manifest on digital cameras, or you're thinking and asking for something to change the physical arrangement of objects on tables and different things. And if you're bringing something home with you, and an apparition is manifested, that you can start to see the quizzical look on the face of that apparition, I would say there was some kind of causal connection between the Skinwalker Ranch and something else that with whom we did not know, with whom we were communicating. And so, and it could have been ET. We don't know for sure. The bar of light, as an example, is very abnormal in the survival of consciousness demonstrations. Something like, I have not come across that in that kind of way. Not that it wouldn't fit, I just haven't come across it. I don't know anybody else that has in that kind of context. So it was a definitive bar of light. And then it disappears. So it has the capability of appearing and disappearing, producing light, but the light it's internal to the bar. It doesn't glow, and you've heard that many times with other kinds of objects that manifest outdoors. It's a craft of some kind, it's a ball, but it doesn't project photons. It doesn't spread its light on the ground. It's a ball that has the light, but it doesn't produce any beam effect. That's aside from the ones that do.
Right.
Okay, but
you had talked about the ranch as having discarnate entities, maybe. They certainly were discarnate in many ways. Looking back at that, then, is that related to what you're about to embark on? Is it the same entity? And I ask it in the context of what you touched on before. As soon as you started planning and talking about this new venture, things started happening to your employees and people around you. Right?
And to me.
And to you.
Especially in the last month.
Strange things in your home. I mean, pretty dramatic demonstration.
Yeah, and I and because of the way they're happening, I'd say, in the passing of my wife, as you know, I lost my wife. We were married 55 years, and she passed on the 19th of February of 2020. And I thought that, and actually I was surprised that she was the roughest of the deaths compared to my father, my son, and my grandson. She was maybe the most difficult to deal with, and yet I am the most prepared to deal with it in spite of that. Because I thought, well, I knew that the passing was happening. It was happening over a substantial period of time, and over months, and even years in terms of acquiring the disease and all that. But so it was coming. And I thought, gee, okay, this is going to be a blow and an impact. But I am better prepared now than ever to handle it. And I was wrong. Yeah, I was surprised. So because of the events, though, that have manifested, I can associate these logically should be connected to her because of it's the only connection I can logically establish because of the circumstances surrounding around the events. And but and that's just happened basically in the last, I guess, it's been a month and a half since the first one, at least. I think a month and a half.
Things happen in your home that have a personal connection to her that you perceive as.
Yeah, and my dog. She gave me orders before she passed that if our dog predeceases me, my responsibility is to have his ashes in a container, next to her someplace. She dearly loved this pooch. And so I said, sure, of course. And so the event, there's one event that had no connection to him, but another event that really, two other events that really did. And so I've had three events that were very demonstrative. And one of the events, there were three other people besides myself that were aware of this, and then just the pooch and me on the other two.